Our ability to perceive, understand, and to judge clearly and intellectually, it helps us to distinguish between our options and enables us to be able to make wise and appropriate judgments, to make knowledgeable decisions. And these judgments, these decisions, they're often based upon our moral, our spiritual, and our aesthetic influences. And this process is called discernment and requires us to slow down a bit in order to be able to reflect and actively listen to the information before we make decisions. The information that we gather, that we evaluate, establishes the trust mechanisms that also influence our lives and our social dynamics. My name is Reverend Michael, and this is the Open Road Ministry. Up to this point, we have learned to discern truth. We have learned how to identify those crafty and deceptive messages in a world constantly, continuously filled by this never-ending noise of screaming headlines and manipulative algorithms that fill our social media feeds, trying to breed an environment of outrage. Always remember, truth, the real truth, speaks quietly. Discernment means to pause before we react, to ask the hard questions, as well as being willing to stand in uncertainty until the truth reveals itself. I can tie discernment to spiritual teaching. It's about wisdom, truth, and our spirit. The Apostle Paul told us to test everything, to hold fast to what is good. It's a very, very strong message, in my opinion. And we find similar messaging in the Quran that urges us to give good tidings to the servants who listen to speech and follow the best of it. Again, this message, listening to the message and discerning the truth, is revealing because we find that not everything we hear is honest. And we've discussed this. Even the Buddha instructs us to investigate the source. We're instructed, basically, to discern what we hear, what we are presented, what we are told by others in every tradition. It is a spiritual practice to find truth, to speak the truth. And in our modern society, we struggle to find the truth because our world is loud, it's noisy, and it's filled with falsehoods. We're bombarded with more information than ever before. But we understand less than ever before. Society, as its pace has increased, has taught us to react rather than to reflect. We're drawn to, or rather gravitate toward the stories and the news and the headlines that support or confirm what we believe. And worst of all, we have learned to mistake emotion for truth. And this is why they eat our cats and dogs, or drag queens are bad, or goldfish poop is in the water. These type of statements affect us so easily. When we feel something strongly, when we feel strongly about some topic, we have been taught that it must be real. If we have an emotional response, it must be real. And this is a trap. This is a trap that indicates that you're being manipulated. And this is why it's important that we must slow down when our emotional state is triggered. And we have to ask, why does this affect me? And who does it benefit if I believe this? And does it sound like they eat cats and dogs? What the heck does that mean? That is one of the most ridiculous triggers that came through our society thus far. And it's so obvious a lie, but it's functional because it causes emotional rage based upon a social narrative and societal racism. So today I just want to offer you 3 tools to find the truth within all this noise that we're bombarded with. First, we must take a moment to sit in silence. We can hear what our spirit is trying to say, but we must remember that God doesn't shout, whispers. The truth is always the quietest. So when we unplug and we step back and we shut down all this noise and the narratives, we create space for truth to rise. And silence, the silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. We're able to focus and ask the important questions that are required for us to determine the truth. And we need this stillness. This is not about doing nothing, but it's rather about not reacting suddenly, not reacting to everything. It is a choice that we stop scrolling, we step aside from the whirlwind, and we ask ourselves, what is really going on here? We must ask this question. And in the stillness breaks the cycle of manipulation, because they need that constant influx in order to generate the emotional response. They can't allow you to think. But if you take time and you step back and you enter a moment of silence, it enables us to choose what matters, what is real, what we should believe, and what we should not. Discernment requires and takes effort. It's about taking the time to study the information that you're presented and the environment in which it creates an environment which helps us distinguish the truth from the lies. We might have to read some scriptures, or study some history, or listen to different perspectives, or learn to recognize the patterns of manipulation. We must take the time to do some research. We cannot allow them to sit here and pressure us to go, right? Because when we study the information, something odd happens. The truth starts to stand up to the examination, but the lies tend to fall apart. Such as, they eat the dogs and the cats. There was nothing to substantiate it. One person says, believe me, this is what I heard, this is what they're saying. And people followed it without question, regardless of how ridiculous it sounded. See, lies require confusion. Lies require noise. Lies require volume to survive, and they require distraction from the facts. And they're also repeated over and over and over again. Russia, Russia, Russia. That is why you hear the same things over and over and over again. It's a liberal lie. It was a liberal lie. It was Russia, Russia, Russia. They're doing this to harm me. It's meant to distract, to manipulate, to control. And as a result, we must then learn to diversify our input. Learn not to follow only the voices that we agree with. And that's hard because a lot of the voices, they're repetitive. Hundreds and hundreds of different profiles saying the same thing. When you delve deep, they all share one thing in common. You're controlled by one major voice. There are always these red flags. If something strikes your emotion hard and fast, something that's being repeated so quickly and harshly and loudly, it's designed to hit you hard and fast. It's designed to trigger your emotions. And I will be honest, discernment isn't always popular. It takes effort. It puts you at odds with the crowd. It makes others accuse us of hesitating, or being neutral, or liberal, or rhino, woke, or weak. Discernment, though, is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's taking the time to educate yourself, to find the truth. And it's how we avoid being pulled into the lies wrapped in hate and emotion and urgency. That's how we break free from emotional manipulation, and how we stay centered in a world that's trying right now in order to tear us apart so one person can control all of us. Once you discern the truth, you have to stand alone and defend that truth. And this is where courage comes in. It's hard. It's hard. My next video, by the way, will talk about what it means to stand firm, even when it's uncomfortable or even when it's unpopular. Because sometimes we must walk alone, because discernment without courage is only half the journey.
And my name is Reverend Michael. This is the Open Road Ministry. I hope today's message brought you clarity and that it earned your subscription. You can support the Open Road by clicking the like button and the notification bell. And if you would like to support the ministry's mission to assist homeless veterans, you will find appropriate links below. So today, may you walk in peace and in clarity.